is Reverend Lynn Rouvier Capron for our Wednesday coffee break.
And Reverend Mike Capron.
We're just laughing at ourselves. I'm laughing at myself, actually, because I just, started before we did this by saying, okay, this is Thursday. And Mike looked at me and said, here you go again, it's Wednesday. So,
which is a perfect intro, because we're going to talk about the importance of humor in small things in a relationship. We've been reading this book that we promised you the title for, The Relationship Cure by John Gottman. And we were talking about this subject yesterday called bids. So it's he set up this lab where I guess he could observe married couples who volunteered to participate, and he was really looking forward to analyzing all this deep interaction, and he thought he was going to get moments of depth and seriousness and
rending.
Yeah, kind of. Instead, he got pretty trivial things. Here's a couple of examples of bids that he observed at the time. The wife reads a funny tidbit in the magazine to her husband. Will he look up and smile? Will he ignore her? Or will he snap at her and be quiet? Or the wife tells the husband, you put too much dressing on the salad she just made. Will he wink playfully and say that she made the salad too small? Will he sulk in silence? Or will he tell her it was a lousy salad anyway?
And the answer to that question depends on a lot of things. But it reminds me of something that happened yesterday.
Yes, we had an example.
So, as he had this lovely Zoom conversation with his two brothers. He's one of three siblings, and they're all male. And they had this sort of family Zoom meeting while I was doing something else, so I couldn't be there. We had our dinner together. We were sort of upstairs, sort of doing our own thing on our computer. And I kind of said, without looking at him, I was facing one direction, laying on the sofa. He was behind me at the desk. And I said, you want to tell me other things that happened with your conversation with your brothers? Crickets, silence, nothing. And I thought, okay, what's going on here?
Eventually there was a no, not really.
In order to get the no, not really, I had to say something like, I can't tell if you answered me or not.
Because she didn't know I was trying to decipher a letter from 1899 from my great-grandmother. So I was concentrating.
Yeah.
But that was a bid that she made that I declined.
Yeah. And so, it reminds me of, I was interacting with a colleague at a conference on the other side of the continent. So no names, but she kept putting out these bids to people.
Yeah.
And they kept getting rejected. And so yesterday we talked about the fact that sometimes you can put out bids and they get rejected. Today we're going to talk about what to do when you put out bids and they get rejected. And one answer to that question is, if it happens a lot, if you find that you're constantly putting out bids, both the people that are close to you and also people at your work or neighbors, and you constantly get rejected, I highly recommend that book
It's a good book
that we showed you, because he uses the results from this lab, and he talks about things like, how do you put out bids in different kind of relationships? The kind of bids that I put out with Mike wouldn't really be so appropriate for, colleagues at my work or staff at my work or, members of my church or neighbors. And so he takes you through that in a very sort of human, easy to read, easy to follow scenario. For most of you watching this, however, that's not really.
And it's also worth saying, if you find in the big macro picture that you have a lot of loneliness in your life and not enough relationships, maybe that's a good time to think about talking to some kind of a counselor who's a professional and could help you look at that stuff.
Yeah, and not every therapist makes you stay for years and years in the deep, dark angst of your background. There are therapists that will help you work on, okay, so how do I do things differently now?
It's better to go in when, things are going okay, but, you got this thing you want to work on.
Yeah, so, but that's what to do if you're constantly having bids that don't work.
Because the payoff, when they do work, is significant. And here's what Gottman says after he'd done some analysis. He said, once we started studying bids and responses to bids, the answer was clear. People who make playful bids and turn toward one another's bids enthusiastically during everyday conversations have more access to humor later on when they get into an argument. If we ever had those, then this would show up.
Yeah. So, for example, arguments about when to reopen the church, arguments about when to reopen the country or the state, arguments about, well, are we going to go for a walk in the park on this sunny Saturday because my kids are begging me to, or am I concerned that they're going to be too close to people who may be carrying the virus?
And, these things, if you're in a relationship that's kind of trusting and bonded through these kind of interactions, these can just be discussions about, okay, what are we going to do on the Saturday?
Yep.
They don't come to have this deeper meaning of, oh my gosh, the person doesn't like
protecting me or something like,
and it's easy when you're cut off from that kind of source of connection for it to start to seem that way. Right. Happens to a lot of people.
Right. Exactly. So we'll end with that for today. And tomorrow we may follow up with this topic a little bit and just talk further about how to have that inner resilience, that core, that knowledge that, if he's concentrating on a ancient document from his family records and just doesn't answer your question, what is it within that helps you just kind of get that grin and tease a little bit instead of feeling rejected?
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that more tomorrow.
Yeah.
In the meantime, may all of you have laughter, connection, and blessings this day. Amen.